All right, welcome everybody to High Value Writing. Thanks for being here at the channel. We've got a really exciting video today because I'm joined by a guest. Scottie Spurzem is an English language coach. She helps people around the world who use English in their professional life use it in such a way where they can succeed at work, meet their goals, build relationships. And we'll hear a little more about her work in a moment. Scottie and I met during the pandemic, where we were so excited to find another colleague when we were working alone, of course, who did what we did. And since we both try to help you all and ourselves and each other use language strategically, we thought we would get together to do a recording about a specific question that Scottie gets from a lot of her clients. So let's hear a little intro from you, Scottie. Let's hear about your work and about what your clients have been asking you lately.
Great. Thanks, Erin. And I'm so happy to be here and have this conversation with you. Yeah. So I work with people who speak English as a second or fifth language, and I help them polish their language skills and communication skills. I focus primarily on like the oral production, but we also get into written emails as well, and just how to manage certain situations. And it came up again recently with one client in particular who continues to be asked by a different, either supervisor or colleague, to add more things to her project list or his project list. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to figure out how to say, there's no way I can do that, but yes, I'm a team player. And so I have danced around language with people, but I thought I would ask you, Erin, for some more pearls of wisdom in terms of making the conversation flow either in an email, probably in terms of writing, because I think we speak the way we write anyway, and you want your emails to sound conversational. So
to sound like you. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any tips you can share?
Yeah, boy, that's a tough question. And I'm glad there are two of us, because we can kind of tease out these ideas, because not every idea works with every supervisor, right? As you all know. One of my first ideas, and this has happened to me and probably all of us, right, where we're asked to do something, and typically we want to say yes, either because of interest in the project or because we want to clarify we care, we're a team player, we want to keep our relationship strong with that supervisor. But often it's just going to mess up the rest of our workload if we do say yes, and we have no choice but to say no. And it's then on us to sort of stick up for ourselves and protect our time in that way and respect ourselves, right? And I would say just one thing to keep in the back of your mind as you work on this type of communication with folks, for all of us, is that it is fair to respect ourselves and protect ourselves, right? So that's number one. You and me, we're all in charge of what we can and can't do, and letting people know that. What's worked for me in the past has been if I do sort of a two-punch approach, where the first thing I'll say is sort of a context or situation. This week, I have 2 deadlines for the marketing department, or something like that. Where are you at? What's going on? And then the second thing I'll say is what I can do, even though perhaps I can't do the thing they asked. So if they said, Erin, can you edit this report for me this week? I might say, I have 2 deadlines on Thursday with this other client. Next week, I have some time on Wednesday afternoon if you'd like to meet for a conversation about this editing project, and then maybe I can see if I'll have more time, right? So you kind of say, here's what's happening right now in my world, because honestly, they may not know, and that's often fair, right? We don't know. But then secondly, you make an offer, but it's not the whole thing they asked for. It's what's feasible for you, still respecting your time. Do you think that kind of approach would work with the clients you've been talking with?
I do. I think, again, it's the framing with someone who is like your supervisor, mm-hmm. Who is a more senior person. And for some people, it's hard for him or it's hard for her to say no to them. Some of that is cultural. I have that same problem. I think it can be even just how you were raised.
I agree.
Let alone in what country. Right. And also thinking about being a team player and not wanting to say no as you're proving yourself and climbing your own, corporate ladder. But I also like the idea of somehow, if you can, to compliment the managers, like, oh, I appreciate you thinking of me for the project. And it's something I really do want to do, if it is. I mean, you have to be honest. Or or thank you for thinking of me for this project. I'm already working on these things. If you want this to be my priority, please let me know, or let Erin know. Let Erin know that her project now is going to be moved to next week. Right. So it's kind of what you were saying, right? Here's the context. Maybe dropping in a little bit of honey, kind of a compliment if it's appropriate. Because as my mom always used to say, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And I think that helps your audience realize that you appreciate them. And that kind of sort of buttering up, or people will say dropping in the sweetness or dropping in the honey. I think I think it absolutely makes things more comfortable in a conversation. But also, and we've talked about this before, Erin, but using words that also allow you to frame it in name the project, give it a label, or name the issue without including too many words that make it your problem, or I can't, or my problem. So it's not a defensive conversation, but more a strategic working opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think keeping the people out of the conversation is actually best here when we can, because there's a goal at hand, right? Maybe we need to finish editing a report by a certain date. And if we have a problem with the report or the editing, let's make it not you or me who's creating the problem. We care about the report. We don't want to spend time on what Scottie did wrong or what Erin did wrong. We want to make the report good. And I used to use that kind of approach back when I taught college, and I would be putting comments on papers. If page 2 was full of great evidence, I would say, you supported your point so well on page 2. And I would use the word you quite a bit. Your paper, your second page, you supported your point on page 2. But when they didn't, I would not say, you failed to support your point on page 2. I would say page 2 needs more evidence.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's not me, it's simply page 2. And they would often say, oh my gosh, let's look. And we would get down to work. So absolutely right that we do catch more flies with honey than vinegar. I saw a study recently that thank you for not littering was a more effective sign in one state than please don't litter. So when we assume the best, we actually are conveying respect. And that's what I thought about your idea too, that before you say your context and what you can do, that you said, thank you for thinking of me for this project. I think it's really smart to start with that, because it's not just kindness, it's respect. It's kind of like, I'm aware that you're my supervisor and it would be nice for me to get to grow from projects. So I respect the fact that you asked me this. It's funny, I was teaching a class last week and one woman specifically said, I have an issue with feeling like I should have to make my writing nice all the time, but I do want to make my writing respectful. So even if anyone is feeling like, ooh, I don't want to say too much nicey nice, you still want to convey respect, right? So you can do kind of a thank you or empathy statement, like, thank you for thinking of me, or, oh, I've heard about this project. It sounds super interesting. And then get into, this week, my schedule looks like X, Y, Z. And then here's an option that I am able to offer you.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking of was that you can even say something personal, like, oh, I haven't, how are your kids? Or it can be are you surviving the rain? Are you surviving the heat, or something like that? You bring it into a more conversational setting, whether it's in person or via email, and then get into the meat of whatever the labels are for the project or the tasks at hand.
Because you're connecting. That way you're connecting with them anyway. And I remember in the beginning, you were saying your clients want to convey, I'm a team player. And that still allows them to show, I care about connecting with you and I care about this. It's just not feasible.
Yeah.
Which is different than not caring.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other thing that comes up a lot, which I think dovetails with this beautifully, is when a supervisor or a colleague or even a client continues to go over and over and over the same thing 25 times. And I've already gone from A to Z. I know how to solve the problem. I know how to project management this issue. I know that the client doesn't have these pieces in hand, or, I know what it is, and I'm ready to go to Z. And they're not. Sometimes I think you just have to let them vent. So, tell me more about what you think the issues are for the blah, blah, blah project. And and I'm so glad you shared that with me. This is what I think we should do. And I've already covered these bases. So you can then move the conversation forward rather than trying to rehash the same data over and over and over again, because it's just a big time waster, but you don't know if your supervisor, colleague, or client just needs to blow off steam. So you need to read your audience also and realize it's not always about, usually it's not about you, it's about them being harried, frustrated, panicked, whatever it is. And if you can remember to keep that at arm's length, I think that really helps me communicate more effectively and confidently in these circumstances.
You know, it's true. I always feel better about myself when I was able to communicate in a way that was productive and towards the future. Like not focus on the problem for too long. And if the other person wants to, like if they need to vent, that's fine. I might think, hey, it's actually more productive if I listen to venting for 10 minutes and then we're good to go, versus go back and forth with emails for the next 2 days. I might think, oh, it'll be more useful if I listen to the venting. I try to think in terms of what is the most useful thing to do or the most productive thing to do, not what makes me feel the most, satisfies my ego or whatever it is. But I want to add a quick story on your note about focusing on the future. I worked with a credit union recently, and the people in charge of the loans were telling me how they handle saying, no, you are not getting a loan. And I said, well, that's got to be tough, because a person who's denied a loan would feel emotional about fear with money, fear of money and just embarrassment, right? And so I said, well, when you say no, how do you do that email? How much time do you spend on why they're not getting a loan versus what to do next? And they said they spend about 5% of the email on saying, we cannot approve you for a loan at this time. We've said no temporarily, and they spend 5% of the email saying that, and then they go on for the whole rest of the email to point to the future. Let's work on your credit. Here are some steps, so maybe you can get approved in 6 months. But they just move right on past that old problem and start moving towards the future. And it keeps all our minds moving forward in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's best too, I'll just throw in one more tip, folks. When you can use language that's about what can be done instead of what can't, you can always frame a can't into a can without lying or feeling fake. Something like, we cannot approve your request because you did not submit Form B. How about when you submit Form B, we can approve your request? I'm not candy coating it. I'm not lying. I'm just saying it in a way that's productive. And we can do that when we say no, instead of I can't do that because I have all these things and I could never, never do more. We can say, well, I can do X after I've finished Y. And just, again, keep things rolling forward, and that protects the relationship.
Yeah, and it's positive. I think it's definitely a positive note. And I'd like to add one other thing, especially if English is not your first language, or if you are a fast talker, that speed is your enemy. And there is an unconscious, or maybe I would say it's an unconscious bias, that when people speak quickly, the listener often thinks they are not confident, they don't want to be there, and they don't know their stuff. Wow. So you really want to check your posture, which you can do sitting, do a little breathing before you head into a conversation specifically, because there's not as much time when you're speaking contemporaneously. But if you can think about it almost as though you were drafting an email in your head as you're getting ready to head into the conversation, I think it will help people. It helps people look more confident and feel more confident. And then therefore your audience will know that you're being reasonable about saying no. So you don't burn a bridge, right? We don't want to burn those business relationships, those professional.
Yeah, and we don't have to. It's not us or them. We can respect both of us at the same time.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, love it. Keep your pace slow. You'll look more confident. You'll sound more confident. I also think when people talk fast, they sound stressed. So yeah, keep the pace slow. Make sure you're using productive, can-do language, and that you're being authentic and protecting yourself.
And we were hoping to keep this to 10 minutes. We might be a minute or two over, but can we have this conversation again?
I'd love to. And in fact, that's perfect, because listeners, please let us know in the comments, what are you struggling with specifically? And Scottie and I will come back in a few weeks and expand on what we talked about. And we'll check with our clients about these tips, and we'll bring you some more ideas. So let us know what's working, and we'll bring you a part 2 in a month or so. Thanks so much for coming on, Scottie. It's great to see you today.
Thank you, Erin. It was fun.
Thank you. Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Bye.